Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Cycle on Global TV. Coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times 276. President Bola Tinubu will today begin a state visit to Japan for the 9th Tokyo International Conference on African Development from August 20 to 22, before heading to Brazil from August 24 to 25, with a brief stop in Dubai. In Japan, he is expected to join other world leaders to discuss Africa's economic transformation, private investment, and human security, while engaging Japanese investors in bilateral meetings. During his visit to Brazil, the president will meet President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, attend a business forum, and explore agreements to deepen Nigeria-Brazil relations. The federal government has imposed a 7-year moratorium on the establishment of new federal universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. It cited the proliferation of underutilized institutions, overstretched resources, and a drop in academic quality as the main reason for the decision. The decision was approved at the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Bola Tinubu at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, following a presentation by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa. Mukhtar Kasim completes the story.
Briefing State House correspondents after the meeting, Minister of Education Dr. Tunji Alausa says the challenge in Nigeria's tertiary education system is no longer access but inefficient duplication, poor infrastructure, inadequate staffing, and dwindling enrollment in many existing institutions. The minister noted that 199 universities received fewer than 100 applications through the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board last year, with 34 recording 0 applications. He says out of 295 polytechnics nationwide, many had fewer than 99 applicants, with 219 colleges of education also posted poor enrollment figures, including 64 with no applications at all.
Today, in our country, access to tertiary education is no longer an issue. What we have now is duplication of new federal tertiary institutions. And what we're seeing is significant reduction in the carrying capacity of each of these institutions, tertiary institutions, universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education.
The Council also approved 4 major proposals from the Ministry of Power in a renewed drive to reform and strengthen the nation's national electric grid. Minister of Power Adebayo Adelabu said the first approval was the release of 13 billion naira for compensations on the right-of-way acquisitions under the Lagos Industrial Transmission Project, funded through a $238 million development loan from the Japan International Cooperation Agency.
The request submitted was approval for the sum of 13 billion naira. The Lagos Ogun Industrial Hub Transmission Project is being funded through a $238 million development loan from Japanese International Cooperation Agency.
He stressed that stable electricity is vital for industrialization, job creation, and sustainable economic development. He added that the remaining 3 approval proposals relate to the procurement of new power transformers is to upgrade the aging national grid. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
The Defense Headquarters has refuted media claims that notorious bandit kingpin Bello Tunji, who has been behind series of attacks in Zamfara, Kebbi, and parts of Katsina State, has surrendered. Addressing journalists on the operational activities of the armed forces in Abuja, Director of Defense Media Operation, Major General Marcus Kenge says Tunji is still at large and remains on the military's most wanted list. Kike Okere has the story.
Tunji, a wanted bandit leader operating mainly in Zamfara and Sokoto State, have been accused of masterminding several attacks on communities in the northwest. Recently, there were reports that the band leader had surrendered his arms and released 32 kidnapped victims following a peace initiative brokered by Islamic cleric in Zamfara State. Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Marcus Kenge, denied reports that bandit leader Bello Tunji has surrendered to the military. The director also dismissed an Amnesty International report accusing troops of unlawful killing in the southeast, describing the allegations as false and unfounded. General Kenge stressed that the armed forces are deployed to protect lives and property, not to harm the population. Speaking on the recent protest by some retired military personnel, Kenge says the matter has been addressed last week by the Military Pension Board in a meeting with the affected veterans. Kike Okere, Global Television News.
The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, had advocated the need for cattle ranching as part of measures to address the parental conflict between herders and farmers. He stated this while addressing a press conference in Abuja ahead of the Maiden African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit aimed at strengthening continental security collaboration. The federal government says it is set to acquire ammunition, precision bombs and rockets worth $346 million from the United States to boost the fight against insecurity. The U.S. State Department has given the approval for the deal, with the Defense Security Cooperation Agency confirming that the American Congress has been notified. The arms purchase comes as Nigeria grapples with widespread security threats, including banditry, insurgency, separatist agitations, and militancy. The House of Representatives has begun an investigation into over 1 trillion naira Nigerian Community Action for Resilience and Economic Stimulus Program, better known as NG Cares. The probe follows concern that the impact of the social intervention in palliative is not being felt by vulnerable Nigerians. A National Assembly correspondent, Aniete Patrick, has details.
The NG Cares program was designed to provide safety nets and palliatives to Nigerians through state government and federal capital territory, with funding support of $696 million, equivalent to over 1 trillion naira. However, the House Committee on NG Cares says there is a growing disconnect between the huge sums released and the realities on ground. Chairman of the committee, Abubakar Kusada, briefing journalists on the resolution of its sitting in Abuja, noted that despite the federal government meeting its funding obligations and providing operational guidelines, the target beneficiaries who are most vulnerable Nigerians are yet to feel the intended relief.
A total of $696 million or 1.06 trillion naira has been released as social intervention, safety net and palliatives to Nigerians in 36 states and the FCT through the various delivery platforms. It is therefore most surprising that the effect of this palliative is not being felt by the target vulnerable groups in Nigeria after government has committed so much resources to this purpose through the states.
The committee says it will examine whether the funds were misappropriated, diverted, or poorly utilized, and whether contracts awarded under the program followed due process. The chairman says the probe will also verify claims on social transfers, agricultural support, infrastructural projects, and market development initiatives, warning that any state fund to have diverted or mismanaged funds will be exposed.
There is still a loud cry of government neglect of the plight of Nigerians enduring the brunt of economic reforms. The House Committee on NGKs, in exercise of its powers under Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution, has resolved to commence immediate and full investigation of the NGKs program so as to unravel the disconnect and ascertain the propriety of expenditure of the huge sums provided by the government for the administration of social welfare.
The NG Cares program was introduced to cushion the effects of economic reforms and improve livelihoods. The House says this investigation will ensure accountability, value for the money, and justice for the most vulnerable Nigerians.
Voter registration in the Federal Capital Territory is set to go digital as the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) begins online registration next week. Federal Capital Territory Resident Electoral Commissioner Aminu Idris made the announcement during a consultative meeting with the media in Abuja. Here is Topsy Gimbia's report.
The Resident Electoral Commissioner for the FCT, Aminu Idris, says the online voter registration will kick off next week, following by a physical capturing a week later. He explained that the meeting with the media is to create awareness and encourage residents to take part in the exercise.
The exercise will provide a window for registrants who wish to replace damaged or lost PVCs, transfer their registration within the FCT or interstate. There is provision for voters who seek to correct errors on their PVCs by updating their information and for collection of the 93,868 uncollected PVCs in the FCT.
Also speaking, the head of litigation, Barrister Franca Osiagede, reminded residents that INEC is empowered to register voters up to 90 days before campaign begin. She outlined penalties for electoral offences.
Don't have more than one. It's one voter's card per citizen. One voter's card per citizen. Please share this message across.
The head of ICT and voter registration, first with ASEAN, highlighted the importance of the online process.
This UI we talked about earlier on, 2 of them. I will encourage you to please take note of this portal, so you can also help us to propagate this message. All those activities I've mentioned before, if you have this at your fingertip with your smartphone, you can perform all these activities without you going to INEC office.
Administrative Secretary Akimbola Olajijoye noted that INEC is working with the National Population Commission to ensure the voter registry is updated to reflect only eligible living voters.
Most times, turnout at display exercise is very extremely low. People don't even come out to check. But this is the only medium that we have as INEC for us to know those people are dead. And you know how it is. You can't just remove people's name from register because they have not come to vote.
Though no end date has been set aside for the CVR, INEC says campaigns for the FCT Area Council election next year are expected to commence not later than 150 days to the election as stipulated by INEC. Topsy Gimba reporting.
Governor Hyacinth Alia of Benue State has expressed the determination of his administration to come up with more empowered programs for women in the state. The governor, who made this known while receiving members of the IPSU Women Association on a solidarity visit to the government house in Makurdi, said this would be achieved through more women-friendly programs and policies to drive development. Felicity Ndere has more. We'll bring you that report in our subsequent bulletin. You're watching the live broadcast of News Cycle. When News Cycle returns, United Kingdom's Starmer urges Putin to show seriousness at Trump talks. Detail coming shortly, plus business and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from that break. Now to the world of business, where President Bola Tinubu has restated his administration's goal of building a $1 trillion economy by 2030, with a minimum annual growth rate of 7% by 2027. The president, who presided over the Federal Executive Council, approved a series of landmark policies and projects covering finance, power, education, and transport. Business correspondent Kike Lomo Okere completes the story.
Addressing journalists after the Federal Executive Council meeting in Abuja, the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, says President Tinubu charged the economic team to optimize public savings and improve spending efficiency to fund investment-led growth. He noted that.
So the president did emphasize and recommit to building a $1 trillion economy by 2020. And in order to achieve this, he focused on the fact that by 2027, we need to be growing by at least 7% per annum to achieve that rapid, sustained, inclusive growth and achieve the target that he has set.
The Minister of Finance also announced FEC approval for $125 million Islamic Development Bank financing for road projects in Umuahia and Aba, as well as phased refinancing plan to settle 4 trillion naira in outstanding electricity sector debt within the next 4 weeks.
The Islamic Development Bank's financing of $125 million in support of infrastructure in Abia State, really a road network in the cities of Umuahia and Aba, about 35 kilometers in one case and about 126 kilometers in another case. I also presented a memo on the all-important refinancing of the electricity sector outstanding obligations.
He also reveals that a total of 493 billion naira was also approved for 2 major infrastructure projects, the upgraded of Kano-Katsina Road and the construction of a new Kata Bridge in Lagos. Kike Lomo Okere, Global Television News.
The federal government, in partnership with the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, has handed over 4 compressed natural gas buses to the Federal Capital Territory Development Authority. The move is aimed at cutting transportation costs in Abuja, promoting cleaner energy. Kabir Hassan reports.
The commissioning, which was held at the FCDA headquarters in Abuja by Engineer Michael Oluwabemi, who represented the presidency, says the commissioning is part of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda to promote cleaner, more affordable and sustainable energy sources for transportation. He says the initiative aims to reduce transportation costs, create jobs and promote environmental sustainability. According to him, the initiative will lower transport fares, create jobs, and reduce environmental pollution.
We are here today to fulfill the promise of Mr. President that is going to move Nigeria towards a clean energy future to power our transportation, to deliver lower cost of transportation to our people. On behalf of Mr. President, on behalf of the board of the PCNGI, led by Barrister Ismail, and the management and staff of the Presidential CNG Initiative, I hand over these keys to you of these 4 CNG hybrid buses to the glory of God, to the service of humanity, and for the enjoyment of the people of the FCT.
The Federal Capital Territory Minister, Nyesom Wike, who was represented by the Mandate Secretary for Transportation, Chinedum Elichi, thanked the presidency for the gesture. He noted that the buses will ease movement for residents and cushion the impact of high fuel prices.
So on behalf of the Honorable Minister, once more, and the FCTA, we thank you, and we say that you should extend our gratitude to Mr. President who is post-initiative business and good for your industry and hardware.
The CNG buses powered by natural gas are cleaner alternative to petrol and diesel. They form part for a broader government plan to roll out similar vehicles nationwide to address rising costs of transportation. With these buses now in operation, it is expected that very soon Abuja residents will enjoy cheaper transport fares within the city. Kabir Hassan reporting for Global TV News.
The Federal Executive Council has approved over 142 billion naira for the construction of modern bus terminals in Abeokuta, Gombe, Kano, Lokoja, Onitsha, and Ewo to improve road transport infrastructure. Transportation Minister Saidu Alkali said the project, awarded Planet Project Limited, is the government's first direct intervention in road transport beyond road building. And now on the foreign scene, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called on Russian President Vladimir Putin to prove he is as serious about peace when he meets Donald Trump in Alaska on Friday, in what could be a pivotal moment in efforts to end the Ukraine war. His comment came after talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at Darwin Strait, which both leaders describe as an important display of unity ahead of the high-stakes summit. The European Union has dispatched 2 water bomber planes to Spain for the first time under its disaster assistance mechanism as the country battled wildfire amid a record heat wave. Spain's Interior Minister Fernando Grande Marlaska confirmed the request for additional resources after thousands were evacuated, including 700 residents from the western city of Scaces, and 3 people, including 2 volunteer fighters, lost their lives. And on to the world of sport. Paris Saint-Germain claimed their first UEFA Super Cup, beating Tottenham Hotspur 4-3 on penalty after a 2-2 draw in Udine. Spur led 2-0 through Van der Ven and Romero before late goals from Lenkan In and Goncalo Ramos forced extra time, with Nuno Mendes netting the decisive spot kick. Nigeria's the Tigers opened their 2025 Afro Basketball campaign with a 77-59 win over Madagascar in Luanda. Caleb Agada led scoring with 22 points, while Stan Okoye added 13 as Nigeria pulled away after a narrow 38-7 halftime lead. The 2015 champions next face defending champions Tunisia on August 15. The Nigerian Football Federation has thrown its weight behind the maiden edition of the Sam Okwaraji Under-16 Annual All-Secondary School Soccer Championship, set to kick off on November 2025. Technical Director at the Nigerian Football Federation, Augustine Eguavon, said this while addressing journalists in Abuja. Sports correspondent Samuel Odi has details.
The technical director of Nigerian Football Federation, Augustine Eguavon, described the competition as a vital platform to discover and nurture grassroots football talent while also keeping alive the memory of one of Nigeria's most iconic sports heroes.
On behalf of my colleagues who are far away from here, because I spoke with a couple of them this morning before coming, we endorse this and we approached it with all our heart and make sure we're also going to be in the venues. Okay, if we can make that possible so that we can, pick talents, harness, and develop them to become like Okwaraji was in the past.
The chairman of the organizing committee, Osita Izunaso, says the chairman of the organizing committee, Osita Izunaso, says the championship will bring together promising young players from 36 states and the FCT, with matches holding at designated centers nationwide before a grand finale at a venue to be announced.
You will recall that exactly about this time, 36 years ago, we lost an icon, a rare gem, a patriot, a believer in Nigerian project, while playing for our dear country during a World Cup qualifier against Angola. It was indeed a dark day for our country and the continent. At this point, it is my pleasure to request us to stand and also observe a 1-minute silence in his honor. We gather to officially announce the commencement of Sam Okwaraji Under-16 Championship.
The tournament will also feature mentorship sections, career development workshop, and also honor Sam Okwaraji, who tragically died during a 1990 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Angola in Lagos on August 12, 1989. Samuel Odi reporting for Global Television News.
That's it on Global TV News Cycle. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using @Global TV NG. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Thank you for watching.